Welcome to Derek, which is the Hebrew word for way or path. And this is our weekly psalmcast called Meditating on the Way, Derek. Today, our psalm is 143, and my name is John Mark Hicks.
And my name is Bobby Valentine. Do you want to welcome you to our Psalmcast, where we follow the path of the Spirit through the book of Psalms that kind of inculcates a certain way of living and attitude and disposition towards God and the world, and to walk in God's ways is what the Psalter teaches us to do. Today we're going to be looking at Psalm 143. It's a classic, and just glad that you're here with us. Hope you'll be blessed. So welcome.
Well, Bobby, as you know, this is one of the seven designated penitential psalms. Now, penitential is not really a genre, it's not an ancient Near
Right.
Eastern genre. It's kind of what basically the medieval church put on top of seven psalms, and this is the last
Right.
one, the number seven, Psalm 143. But give us a context for Psalm 143. What are we looking at here?
Yeah, Psalm 143 in the context of the Psalter itself falls in book 5 of the Psalter. The book of Psalms, or the Psalter as it's called sometimes, is divided into five smaller books on the analogy of the Pentateuch or the Law of Moses. And so book 1, 2, 3, and 4 precede book 5. Book 5 is a exquisitely laid out, designed on purpose uh, work of the editors of the Psalter, where it tells, um, in many ways, the story of Israel. And sometimes it does it again. So you have this big long arc that begins with the Egyptian Hallel, takes you through 118 all the way, 113 through 118, brings you to what we might call the giving of the Torah, the giving of the covenant, Psalm 119. Then it's followed by the Psalms of Ascent. And all these are taking on this arc, a literary arc that brings you into the presence of God in Zion. That's followed by two powerful psalms. They're not attributed to anyone, where you just burst out in praise. That's what you're doing. And that's how the book of Psalms is going to end, too, in this great big giant bang of praise. And then it opens up with David suddenly reappearing in Psalm 138. And the next eight psalms are all attributed to David. And it's as if David himself is now reappearing like a priest after the order of Melchizedek, leading the children of Israel many centuries down the road, in fact, through worship in that great sanctuary that we saw back there on the top of Mount Zion in the Psalms of Ascent. But it takes you from basically lament to praise itself. We ask God to uh, bring the kings in, bring the nations in. That's 138. We ask God to be with us when we feel alone. That's the lament of isolation, but we've already covered that in 139, that no matter where you go, God is there. And today, that was last week, Psalm 143, we confess, even after all this journey, Israel is a people and the individual Israelites. We exist in this covenant relationship based on God's righteousness, God's faithfulness, not our own. Don't enter into judgment on us. And this is going to be followed with a prayer of deliverance, which 144, and then the great big bang of praise, meditating on the God creed that is Exodus 34:6. And David is, again, I think it's David doing this as this priest king, kind of like Solomon at the dedication of the temple, leading God's people symbolically in this praise that we exist by Yahweh's Hesed. We've never been faithful. That's the story of this altar. We've never been faithful. We are here because He has chosen us. He's been gracious to us. And now we need Him to continue to do that. We need Him to continue to preserve us and hold us so that we can have, um,
Hmm.
that we can be faithful and we can fulfill the mission He created us for, which is
Yeah.
inviting the nations in and bless them too.
Yeah,
So
the psalm is a recognition that it's not our righteousness, it's God's
exactly, it
righteousness,
has
right?
nothing to do with our righteousness.
And at the
So
same time, it is also a recommitment, a request. God, teach us, guide us,
yeah,
show us the way
that's
here,
right. There's
on
in
the
fact
basis of your
yeah,
chesed, on the basis of your steadfast love and your righteousness.
exactly.
And that I'll concentrate. I mean, I'll focus myself. I will orient myself to meditate and think about and reflect on your goodness. But you need to teach me because I'm not faultless. I'm a struggling, and I need to be able to walk this way in your righteousness. But I need your righteousness to do that, right?
That's right. And that teach me, that happens 8 times in Psalm 119. So we have a
Mm,
connection here in 143 back to the great Torah Psalm, Psalm 119,
mm,
where the plea there is over and over, God, teach me
yeah,
again 8 times. And we'll see when we get there. This is a pretty strong
yeah,
plea here in verse 8, that God do this to us so that we can be what He wants us to be. And I think
yeah.
there's a connection again there with Psalm 119 where He says, "Hey, we've gone astray like a lost sheep. Save me." It's like
Right.
so, but it's
So
not
we're
my righteousness. So yeah,
So we're flawed, but we're going to depend on God's righteousness and we're going to seek
exactly,
God's righteousness. And God is going to respond with grace and mercy rather than bring us into judgment because we are
exactly.
through our
Yeah.
seeking of His way. So let's read Psalm 143, Bobby, and you are our lector. So the beginning of Psalm 143.
Yeah, Psalm 143, a psalm of David. Hear my prayer, O Lord. Give ear to my supplications in your faithfulness. Answer me in your righteousness. Do not enter into judgment with your servant, for no living thing is righteous before you. For the enemy has pursued me, crushing my life to the ground, making me sit in darkness like those long dead. Therefore, my spirit faints within me. My heart within me is appalled. I remember the days of old. I think about all your deeds. I meditate on the works of your hands. I stretch out my hands to you. My soul thirsts for you like a parched land. Selah. Answer me quickly, O Lord. My spirit fails. Do not hide your face from me, or I shall be like those who go down to the pit. Let me hear of your steadfast love in the morning, for in you I put my trust. Teach me the way I should go, for to you I lift up my soul. Save me, O Lord, from my enemies. I have fled to you for refuge. Teach me to do your will, for you are my God. Let your good spirit lead me on the path. For your name's sake, O Lord, preserve my life. In your righteousness, bring me out of trouble. In your steadfast love, cut off my enemies and destroy all my adversaries, for I am your servant. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God. I'm
Yeah,
in, I'm intrigued by how, though this is a penitential psalm as churches characterized it, and there's one line that makes it say that. I mean,
yeah,
that's there's just that line that no one is righteous before the Lord, and so
right.
everybody kind of takes that line and makes it into a penitential psalm. But I think the beginning and the end, I am your servant. The whole tenor of the psalm is I'm committed to you.
Yeah,
I'm on
yeah,
your side. I want to be
yeah,
with you. And then you have
yeah,
this kind of the first half of the psalm, and that terms of that servanthood is apparently there's some situation that finds himself under duress or distress, It doesn't seem to be he's feeling sinful. It seems to me it's like there's some external pressure here.
Yeah.
And so the
Yeah.
complaint is not about I've sinned, but the complaint is about, oh, there's some people out here looking for my life. And then the
Yeah.
second half of the psalm is a kind of a petition, a plea for God to do something.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm not so sure penitential works here, Bobby. I don't,
Yeah.
I mean, how do you think about that?
No, I think you're right. I think that um, in terms of cultivating a spirit of repentance, okay, if we want to go that way, I I I think the psalm says the truth. No one is righteous before you, and that's good to confess. But I think Psalm 51 is certainly more appropriate than this one, or even outside the Psalter, the prayer Manasseh. But I think you're right. This is the plea of a person who sees themselves in that word servant as a dependent. I am a person who is definitely in need of you because you are my covenant God to do some rescuing. And I think that's the plea. Don't enter into judgment with me. I need you to come and being a rescuer. So we have a number of allusions to the Exodus in this particular song too. That shows you got this person who's simply, I think, holding out their hands and say, I need rescuing. I need rescuing. I need you to
Right.
come get me. We have somebody who's coming to take my life. And I think you're right on that. I don't think it's so much this person is feeling overwhelmed with sin or guilt. They are feeling overwhelmed in a sense of powerlessness because something on the outside
Right.
is uh, is threatening them in some nefarious way. And I think this, as the Psalter goes as a whole, this kind of points back in this particular section with David to back to Psalm 2. This is the nations who are making war on Israel and the representative of the people of God and the Lord, you're supposed to laugh in heaven at these people. So now you need to come rescue me.
Yeah.
And I think that
Yeah.
is
You see that.
possibly what's
Yeah, you see
going
that
on
in
here.
verse 3, the enemy. The enemy has
Yeah,
pursued me. Now, the
yeah.
Septuagint has a superscription that includes, it says something about fleeing from Absalom or something like that.
Absalom, when
Yeah.
Absalom was hunting down David. Yeah,
Right. And so that
yeah,
might be, I mean, if you take that superscription from the Septuagint, then you see this in the context of Absalom. But I don't
yeah.
think that's a limiting context. I think it's
Oh, I
more
don't either.
broader
Yeah.
than that. It's more general than that. So you,
It's a scenario that's suggested
yeah,
by the
potential
elders. It's
scenario.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So in those first six verses, we had the first two kind of the hear my prayer. The three and four is kind of okay. I'm feeling really rough about this. The enemy is crushing me, making me sit in darkness, and my spirit faints. But then the response in five and six is okay. But I'm going to remember you. I'm going to think about all your deeds. I'm going to meditate on what you've
yeah,
done. But let's
yeah.
start with verses 1 and 2 there, because this is the verse that's quoted by Paul. Verse 2 particularly.
Right.
But I think it's really, really interesting the call to hear. I want you to hear my prayer, God, but I want you
Yeah,
to hear it in your faithfulness and your righteousness.
yeah.
Now, I want you to hear it in righteousness, but I don't want you to enter into judgment. I don't want you to
Exactly.
judge me based on your righteousness, right? I want you to hear my
Exactly.
prayer in your righteousness, but don't judge me based
Exactly.
on the righteousness because
Yeah,
no one living's no there's no one's righteousness that measures up to you. You
exactly.
you are the righteous one, and the rest of us, but no one can live righteous before you in the sense of your righteousness. So nobody
Exactly.
measures up here. And I think that Paul picks that point up and runs with it in Romans and Galatians.
Oh, absolutely. So yeah, the faithfulness of God, not the faithfulness of people,
Right.
I think is really, that's what Paul's wrestling with in the book of Romans, when people talk about even, old N.T. Ray called his massive book, Paul and the faithfulness of God. But I think that's what's kind of going on here. That's why it starts with that.
Right.
That's a covenantal term, and I think this is ultimately rooted, as I mentioned a moment ago, and I've said this 100 times if I've said it once, that this is rooted in the supreme moment there in Exodus when God revealed his faithfulness, his ways to Moses. And you got several terms from that section that pop up in this psalm, like they do in so many. If God is faithful while Israel is not, so I appeal to you as the one who's going to hold the covenant and hold us together. You're going to be the one who has mercy on whom you have mercy. That's the faithfulness of God. And now in your righteousness, those two things they're in parallel here, so they kind of mutually explain one another. But God's righteousness is His uh, well, it's his living out his faithfulness in
Mm.
this particular
It's God doing what is
instant.
right, doing what he
God's
promised.
doing what is
Yeah.
right
Hmm.
according to the covenant.
Right.
He
Hmm.
made the promise that he was going to keep us. And so now, Lord, I'm calling out to you. And he uses that vocative there, he or Israel, oh Lord, it's like, okay, I'm calling out on you. This is not just some sheepish little thing. I'm calling out to you in your faithfulness, in your righteousness. Hear my prayer.
Yeah,
So
and not
this
just
is
as an
a
individual, but as a corporate reality. I mean, this is
exactly the
taken
whole.
up into the assembly of Israel, right? So this isn't just kind of like, oh, I'm filled with sin. No, Israel's under duress. Israel's being attacked. The people of God are in danger. And so God, hear
Exactly.
our prayer. Remember your faithfulness, remember your righteousness. Not because
Yeah,
we got it all together, not because we're so wonderful ourselves, but because of your promise and your chesed, which we'll get
right.
that word
Exactly.
steadfast love
Exactly.
later. So it is all dependent upon God. And at the same time, this phrase, do not enter into judgment with your servant. Don't,
Yeah, the
I
plea.
don't want to be treated as I deserve. Okay.
Exactly.
Which goes back to Psalm 103 and the forgiveness there
Exactly.
that
Exactly.
we are not treated as we are deserved. And that phrase, enter into judgment, we find in Job chapter 14, verse 3, where Job is saying, look, I don't know what's going on here. I don't know why everything's falling apart, but God, don't enter into judgment with me.
Yeah.
Don't treat me like this. Rather, because I know I'm not sinless, and here the
Yeah.
psalmist, that whole line, for no one living is righteous before you, is not a statement um, about our sense of orientation to God, or our sense of commitment to God, or our sense of leaning on God. It's rather just a bold statement about no one measures up to who God is. If
Exactly.
God gave us what we deserved, we would all fall, right?
You're
So,
right.
and this
You're
is
right.
God's faithfulness, that God is not going to treat us as we deserve. He's not going to bring us into judgment
Yeah.
because of
Yeah.
his own faithful righteousness.
Exactly. Older translations might even read here, and some of them do, in fact, no one is justified before you. And
Hmm.
I think that's the very thing that, again, in Romans, and but especially in Galatians chapter 2, when Paul is talking, he says, we Jews know. It's a statement that's so often overlooked, though. We Jews know that no one is justified by observing the law or keeping the law.
Yeah, it's
So you're not
2:16
coming
Galatians.
before, it's somebody who doesn't know how to use the law, as he's going to say later in Timothy, those who misuse the law. If the law is good for those who use it right, he says. But here, we come before him and say, we've entered into this covenant. And again, covenant and law are not the same thing. The law is put inside the covenant, but the covenant, God rescued Israel first. He rescued them, saved them.
Mm.
Exodus comes before Sinai. The law did not establish the terms of the covenant, and it never will. And he says, we have been faithless, or we have been unfaithful since the moment the covenant was given. Again, when you go back to Mount Sinai, the very first covenant renewal is there on Mount Sinai after the golden calf. When the golden calf is done and God renounces his ways, Moses falls down and he worships the Lord. And then in verse 11 and 12 of chapter 34, God renews the covenant. That's the first covenant renewal.
Mm.
And it's based all in Yahweh's faithfulness, Yahweh's
Yeah.
righteousness. Yahweh's hesed that's going to occur twice in this particular psalm. And he says, look, we know this. We want to be justified by you, not by us, because, as he's going to say, we are not we are not righteous. And
Mm-hmm.
the whole story of the Psalter, again, these David is leading us in these Psalms, and this last, the fifth Davidic Psalter here, is David as being the voice here is supremely uh, relevant to this. He's the one who has did the stuff with Bathsheba. He's the one that set the the stone rolling, so to speak, in Samuel that ultimately leads into the exile. If David's the best you got, then we're pretty shot. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's really the issue there in the Deuteronomistic history. It's like, look at this. I mean, you got a third of Samuel devoted to that fallout of Bathsheba, and it's like, oh no, we can't do this, but we know we trust in
Yeah.
you. We trust in you,
So
and you're faithful.
yeah, so in verse 5 particularly, he doesn't say don't give me, don't enter into judgment with me because of me. He says, "Don't enter into judgment with me because of you, right? Your
That's right.
faithfulness." And then verse 5, he says, "It's not that. Hey, don't you remember how faithful I've been? Don't you remember how committed I am? Don't you remember how much I worship you?" That's not what he says
Hmm.
in verse 5. He says, "I
Yep,
remember the days of old. I think about all your deeds. I meditate
that's
on the
right.
works of your hands. It's what
That's right.
God has done. I'm
That's
gonna
right.
I'm gonna bring before the Lord not how wonderful I have been." But I'm going to bring before the Lord how wonderful God has been. And on that
Exactly.
basis, I'm spreading out my hands to you and calling upon you to act and to do something to help us in this
That's right.
situation.
And here again, you have a connection to both the opening of book 5 and Psalm 136. So the opening of book 130 of book 5, you have the celebration of the creation, and then the law, that's Psalm 104, begins with Psalm 103, the God creed. 104 is all creation. 105, God's faithfulness to the patriarchs and the whole 9 yards, and of course Israel's sin. But 136, you have that great Hallel celebration of the deeds of Yahweh, which is the Exodus, and the works of his hands, which is creation. So the story, he here in this wonderful Psalm of 143, we come back to the story. We come back to the Sabbath, and we come back to the Passover. And the Sabbath remembers both creation and Exodus. Passover celebrates this wonderful deliverance. I'm going to come along, and those words got two different words here translated New RSV as think and meditate. But these things mean kind of like murmuring and singing and talk about. I'm going to talk and moan and growl about your deeds, and I'm going to talk and sing about the works of your hands. I'm going to do these kind of things because that's where I find um, faith. That's where I find courage to go on. It's where I find hope, and that's what I think that you see here in verse 5 is the basis of the hope. This is what tells me about the faithfulness of God. This is what tells me about the righteousness of God, is this story that tells me about how good Yahweh is. This is why I'm here. I mean, I can come and this is why I'm stretching out my hands to you, because
Hmm.
I thirst for you. I thirst for you. And what a
Right.
powerful image in like a parched land, it's just sucking up the water, when the kind of like Arizona when it finally rains and you got all that water coming through in the wash, and then in a couple hours later it's bone dry because it just sucks it all up. And he says, That's me. I'm me. It's me.
Yeah, I think when you look at those verbs in verse 5, remember,
Yeah.
think, meditate, all three of those verbs occur in Psalm 77, where we have the lament. Where is your steadfast love? Have you forgotten forever? That kind of thing. And the response is, well, I'm going to meditate and think about, moan over. I'm going to turn over in my head over and over and in my
Yeah.
worship what you have done. And Psalm 77, remembers the Exodus primarily.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
So same thing's going on here. We got this distress, as you mentioned, my soul, my spirit faints, my heart within me is there's something going on internally, but it's not about a guiltiness. It's about the stress of being attacked by the enemy. And that's where the faintedness comes from. And
Yeah,
that's why he's responding. And that's where the third, God, we need you to show up
yeah,
because
yeah,
we're under duress here.
yeah, yeah. It's that thing about waiting on the Lord.
Hmm.
Sometimes that can be really hard to do, waiting on the Lord, because we want him to show up, which is part of Israel's story. Abraham, what did he do when he didn't wait on the Lord? He brought in another woman, and we got a problem. So,
Right.
uh,
Well,
so
yeah. So in the second half of the psalm, we get like 9 or 10 verbs that where he's just appealing to God and wanting God to do
yeah,
answer me or don't
answer me.
hide, let me hear, teach me, save me, teach me twice. So we have the setting in verses 1 through 6. Then we get that Selah, which gives us a pause
Yeah, yeah. It
and
divides the
moves us to
psalm.
another
Yeah,
section. So in this section is just kind of, okay, God, I'm ready. I'm ready to experience you. I'm ready to know you. I'm ready to follow you. I need your help, though. Help me out here.
I'm waiting, but now come do it quickly.
Yeah. Answer me quickly. Right. Yeah. I like that. I like that sense of, okay, I'm going to wait on the Lord, but oh, I need it quick. Give it, come on, help me out here because my spirit fails. And he's mentioned
Yeah,
that
of
before.
course.
My,
Which
my
is said
spirit is,
twice,
yeah,
I
my spirit's
mean,
struggling. So I need some help here.
yeah,
And it looks like you're hiding your face from me when I'm
yeah,
experiencing this, when I'm sitting in darkness, as he mentioned earlier, or I'm going down to the pit, like I'm about to go to death, or I'm about to, if you think about that in an Absalom context, David's on the run and he's under threat and he's going to be, Absalom wants to kill him, right? There's a civil war breaking out. So you can
exactly.
imagine the stress, and no doubt that's why this psalm kind of is contextualized by some readers in that moment in
Yeah.
David's life.
And if we keep it in the Absalom context there in Second Samuel from 11 to First Kings 2, when all the fallout from that follows, um, the stress here is not just enemies; it's who the enemies are.
Yeah.
It's your own family. It's your flesh and blood. It's internal. I mean, it's like Psalm 55 says, if it was somebody who was over there that I don't care about, but it was you as my faithful friend, that I went to the temple and we were in the procession together. It was you who lifted up your hand against. I mean, those kind of
Right.
things, the emotional, psychological weight of internal conflict that takes place can oftentimes be far worse than what somebody coming up and smacking you or whatever. I mean, none of that's good, but oh man, I'm telling you what, that internal hurt is a weight to bear. And I think that this person who's leading the entire family of God, and the person is enmeshed here. It is corporate, but it's also do not enter judgment with me, your servant. It's like, so it's my life. So we got this all together, and I'm about to go down to the pit. Um, but I think the Psalter has already prepared us for this. Again, David did it with Psalm 139, just a couple, wherever you go, including in the pit, you are there, your
In the
spirit, where can I
darkness.
go? So I
Yeah, in the
think it's
darkness. Mhm.
already, sometimes I think the Psalter is trying to teach us to have faith in the darkness, to be able to walk in the darkness without being able to see, and have faith when there's no reason to have faith. And here it's like, yeah, I am struggling here at the end of the Psalter. Still, I am struggling, but I'm holding on because I believe in a certain. It's not just that I
Mm.
believe in God. I believe in a certain kind of God. The God of Israel
Yeah.
is the God of faithfulness and God of righteousness, and ultimately the God of Hesed, as we're going to see. And
Yeah.
that's where our hope lies.
So I hear two things going on here, like from verses 8 and following. We got this, my spirit fails. I'm going down to the pit. Don't hide your face from me. So we have these appeals to God. Let me hear, teach me, save
Yeah,
me, teach me. Let your good spirit lead me. So these kind of verbal appeals for God to do something. But we also have the reason, the because. We have this word because, like it's translated for the most part in
right.
English translations, but it's like
Yeah,
five of them, like in
yeah,
verse 8, because in you I put my trust, or
yeah.
because to you I lift up my soul, or verse 10, because you are my God, or let's see, there's another one down here somewhere. Oh yeah, down in verse 12,
Verse
because
10.
I am
Yeah,
your servant.
yeah,
So there's this, remember who I am. I'm trusting in you. I am your servant. You are my God. Um, I lift up my soul to you. I'm oriented to you. I'm connected to you. You're my covenant God. You're my Lord. You're Yahweh. So all of this is kind of, there is this the appeal that we make to God is not kind of just an abstract appeal. It's a centered appeal. It's because of our relationship with God and our pursuit of God. So the psalm reflects this intense kind of yearning and pursuit to kind of grab hold of God.
yeah,
Because I trust you, I'm lifting up my soul to you. I am your
yeah,
servant. You are my
yeah.
God. That's the reason I'm even talking to you. Because
Exactly.
of our
Yeah.
relationship.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think this is just that pleading for God to do we we do when we said we will in Exodus 19, we meant that even though we've fallen seriously. And
Hmm.
now we need gracious uh intervention. And so when the person says, for example, um don't want to skip too much here, but in verse 8, reading that in English, and I just want to comment on this, people may not understand different Hebrew verbs, but this is the hithil, and it means not just teach me, it's to cause to happen.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Let me hear of
it's
your
to
steadfast love.
cause
Cause
to
me to hear.
happen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
it's like,
Exactly.
and then later on, you get the different the appeal there in verse 10, which is an intensified thing. It's like uh, one is to cause, and the other one is like enable the causing in me to happen. And again, that all goes back to Psalm 119, where those same verbs occur 8 times in Psalm 119, where the person is just crying out and says, I can't do this. It's like me trying to learn calculus. I can't do this. I need you to download something in my head. And what I hear in the background here, especially with the reference to the spirit, I may be coming at this more canonically than just ancient Israelite is she, but where in Ezekiel says he's going to place his spirit in you and move you
Hmm.
or cause you to know, so that you will obey him. That's what this person is praying about here and saying, I need you to do something that we have proven over and over and over incapable of doing. And we have fallen. So, and I don't like that. I don't like doing that. And here again, I hear Romans going on here. This is Romans 7. I do that which I don't want to do, and I don't do that which I want to do. So I need you, again, that good spirit to come to enable us to fulfill the righteous requirement of the law, as Paul's going to say in Romans 8. And I do think that that's floating in the background here from Isaiah 63. And they are thinking in terms of the Exodus, the Spirit of God, the presence of God, and the pillar and the cloud guiding the children of Israel. I need what you did in the Exodus, I need you to do for me. And then you're going to take me into the promised land. You're going to take me to the good land. You're going to take me to that place. And I hear this, and I need you to do this for your sake
Mm.
because you
Yeah.
promised that you're the covenant God. To
Right.
you have to bring us in here because that's what you said you were going to do. And so this
No.
becomes the issue of God's reputation, as Moses is going to put it in Exodus. He said, "What are the Egyptians going to think if you just blot us out here? I mean, you couldn't do it, but He is going to do it." And I think that's where we are here in Psalm 148. That's just
No,
how I'm reading
that's a really good point. Because when you're looking at "Let me hear of your steadfast love," "Teach me," "Save me," "Teach me," these are all Hifels where you are, as you said, cause this to happen in me, God.
it.
You
Yes.
got to do this. It's not like um, okay, just open my blank mind and pour some
Yeah.
information in. It's rather create this heart in me, as Psalm 151
Exactly.
says,
That's
create
right.
this life in me. So I need, and I think you're reading canonically here quite well, it seems to me, especially that let your good spirit, your good ruach, the pneuma in the New Testament, the spirit, let the good spirit lead me. And that's a Hiphel as well, to
Yeah.
cause me
That's right.
to walk on a level path. I need you to be at work inside of me. I need your spirit to be leading me so that I can actually accomplish this that I want to accomplish. I want to do this.
Yeah.
I trust in you. I want to follow you, but I know my failings and I know no one living is righteous before you. So I need your help.
Exactly.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. And that phrase, good spirit, only occurs one other time in the Hebrew Bible, and that's in Nehemiah 9, verses 19 and 20, I think. And that's where he does call the good spirit that led the children of Israel out, the pillar of cloud, the whole 9 yards. But Isaiah 63, Isaiah says it wasn't some angel or whatever. It was your presence, your spirit, and then he caused the spirit, you depressed him. You caused
Mm.
him
Yeah.
stress.
Yeah.
And so I think you have that legitimate reading there here. And the contrast is between my spirit, my ruach, which is fainting, and your good spirit, which will lead me.
Yeah.
So whether these people are actual Trinitarians, I think is irrelevant. They do believe that God's spirit, his presence, somehow is the enabling thing, kind of like it in the creation account. The spirit is there, and the spirit is the one who brings about life. And I need him to do that here for me. We
Hmm.
are the people who are near death, we're near the pit. You need to come along and enable and to cause. You need to do this because without you, again, Psalm 119 in the background, I love your law. I meditate on it. It's like a light to my path, but I've gone astray like a lost sheep. That's the
Hmm.
very last line in Psalm 119. And it's like, I think that's here at the
Yeah.
end of the Psalter, we get that same thing in the appeal to your righteousness. Preserve me in your righteousness.
Mm.
And it's like on the basis of your Hesed. It's
I
like,
think
oh
it's
yeah,
I think it's perfectly appropriate to read canonically here and to think in
yeah,
terms of the role of the Spirit in creation and the role of the Spirit in new creation
yeah,
and the role of the Spirit in our lives to enable and empower.
yeah,
And that's an appeal here.
yeah,
Whether the psalmist is thinking in the same way about Holy Spirit
right,
that we think about the Holy Spirit in terms of the Pentecost, the pouring out of the Spirit, I think that is irrelevant because what is the point? The point is that God is going to be active in the life of this person to
that's exactly
create
right,
this teaching, create this leading, to give a person and the ability to walk on a level path, right? To walk on the earth
right,
in a level way, in a plain,
yeah,
in a
actually,
righteous way.
exactly,
Upright way is really the word there. That
yeah,
level, you can also translate that upright.
yeah,
So we go
absolutely,
back to the righteousness. Where am I going to? How am I going to be righteous before God? Well, no
yeah,
one living can do that on their own. But
exactly,
when the good spirit is leading me, I can be led into an upright path or an
yeah,
upright
yeah, yeah.
land. Yeah.
And I think this connects to the idea of presence too. If Yahweh is in heaven, that's where
Mm.
his real temple is, but God is with his people in the wilderness through his spirit, the pillar, the cloud. And I think the same thing is happening today. Jesus is in the presence of God, the Father, but the Spirit is with us. as we are living before the end of the story, in between the times, between the time of the Exodus and the promised land, between the time of the cross and resurrection and the return, the Spirit, God dwells with his people through the
Hmm.
Spirit still. And
Hmm.
he's guiding us and he's enabling us. And I think that Romans 7 and 8, especially, really do play out in Psalm 143 here,
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
just makes a lot of sense to me. And
Well, let's call attention to, I mean, the Hesed word is in verse 8
yeah,
and it's in verse 12, steadfast love. This is something we've talked about often when we're walking through the Psalms because it comes up so often. But it
it
kind of
does.
kind of is a bookends of this petitionary context here from verses 7 to 12. But notice, in verses 11 and 12 in particular, for your name's sake. It's not even necessarily for my sake.
That's right.
Although I have a vested interest in this, but
Exactly.
but it's God's sake. I mean, God's name, and God's
Yeah,
reputation. God, you made a commitment. You're the faithful God, and
yeah.
your name is at stake. Your reputation is at stake here.
That's
Uh,
his glory, ultimately.
Faithful.
That's
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
exactly. Take off on that.
No, I think that's exactly right. That this is, again,
In your
I go back to
righteousness is
that.
the parallel. Yeah.
Yeah, your righteousness, your faithfulness, his glory. What are the nations going to think? That
Hmm.
kind of thing shows up in Exodus and Ezekiel, especially when at the golden calf and God is going to wipe out the people, and Moses falls down and says, "Hey, what are the Egyptians going to think?" Oh, well, who cares what the Egyptians are going to think? Well, Yahweh does. And in Ezekiel, it is, we have made God's name to be blasphemed among the nations.
Right.
Well, here, if Yahweh is not the one who, if we've gone through the story of Israel, even coming out on the other side of the exile, that was Psalm 137, and we've come out on the exile, and we're still flawed. What is the hope? How can we bring glory to you when we are still just as flawed as before we died and went into the exile? We need you to do something to recreate us, to make us new, to put in us the kind of stuff, again, that Ezekiel 36 and 37 talks about. That, okay, God, we you did create us for a purpose, and we have fallen, and this reflects on you. So make us what you want us to be, so
Hmm.
that your name, again, that's the name is Yahweh. This is the covenant name of God that we're not supposed to bring shame upon. Don't take the Lord's name in vain. And that's more than just talking verbal stuff. This is how we live in the
Yeah.
world.
How we bear the
Help
name of
us.
God in our
How do we bring
lives,
glory
right?
to you?
Yeah.
God, we need you to do this, because that's what we're here for. You put us here to be a light to the nations, Isaiah 49. And I think that is, so now preserve us, not for us, but for your own name's sake.
So this is
And
the appeal where he coming back to what he started, where he started in verses 3 and 4, like deal
exactly.
with my enemies. I mean, for your name's sake,
Yeah,
keep me living, and your righteousness bring me out of trouble. Cut off my enemies, destroy my adversaries. In other words, deal with the enemies so that I might live in your faithfulness and in your righteousness, in
that's
your
right.
steadfast love. Deal with this trouble. If you put it back in that Absalom context, God, you told me that I'm king, that this is the promise to me and my heirs, and now I have a usurper who's trying to take it all to undo your promise. So
Exactly.
God, do
Exactly.
something about that. Deal with my adversaries and bring me out of this trouble because of your righteousness, your steadfast love, and for your name's sake. It's all about you, God. Your
Exactly.
reputation is at stake.
And there's one more layer to that. All
Hmm.
that's true. And David has led us through just two Psalms before this in 141, where suddenly the enemies are not those people out there, but they're really what's in my own heart.
Yeah.
So if God is going to slay the enemies, he's also going to do something in us. He needs to remove um, the the stiff neckedness of us, like Moses says in
The
Deuteronomy 9. You've been
stubbornness,
stiff
right?
necked since he saw you. You
Yeah.
know, he needs to do something to us so
Yeah.
that we ourselves, not just external but internal enemies,
Yeah.
so
So
that and
that's
again,
the
I think
appeal
that's the
to
spirit issue.
teach
So yeah,
me. I mean, that's why
yeah,
I need the Lord
exactly,
to teach
exactly.
me. You know.
So you're right. Those are the internal dispositions of I need to have a mind that's open. It's got to be moldable, and
Hmm.
then it's got to have the power to to follow the direct, which, by the way, is the very word that's used in our text in verse 8. Teach me the way I should go
Right. Yeah.
is
There you go.
direct.
Hmm.
So, and again, so that goes back to Psalm 1, but it also goes back to Exodus 34, the ways of the Lord, when Moses prays, teach me your ways. And
Mm.
so I need you to teach me the way. And here, but I have to have the power. I have to have the power. It's not just an intellectual thing. It is the power to stay on the path
Right.
and not fall.
And
And I think that's
I need the power for God to deal with the enemies too, as we take it back to
exactly.
Psalm 2, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we got enemies within and we have enemies without, and or God has enemies without. And
Yeah.
those enemies are oppressing the people of God in this context. So
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
need God's power to deal with both. So teach
Exactly.
me, let your good spirit lead me, help me out on the inside here because my spirit is fainting, but deal with my enemies because they're the ones creating this trouble and anxiety, and I need to trust your faithfulness. And the
Exactly.
psalm is saying, I trust your faithfulness. I believe
Exactly.
you're gonna for your name's sake, you will preserve my life.
Exactly. And that's why the text is in the Psalter.
Yeah,
It
absolutely.
enables the people of God to pray this prayer even today. Say, Lord, we have gone down the road a little bit, but we are probably in the same position every single day.
Mm,
We need you
amen.
to renew our spirit, and give us your good spirit, help teach us, enable us, cause us to know what you want.
Hmm.
And I think that's our prayer. I think that's our
Um,
prayer.
Cause us to hear your steadfast love deep inside of us so that we have the confidence to follow your way, right?
Absolutely.
Direct. May the grace of our
Yeah.
Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the communion of the Holy Spirit be with us all.
Amen.
Amen.